Long time ago, the dusty streets of St. Obi, a small but lively town nestled between rolling hills and a steady river, lively with activity as the afternoon sun beats down mercilessly. Market women yelled over the clanging sound of iron pots, children darted between narrow mud houses, and men sat under the shade of towering palm trees, debating politics and football with exaggerated passion. Life here was simple, predictable, until it wasn't. Kunle, the town's infamous charmer, strolled confidently through the chaos. His crisp white shirt clung to his broad chest, and his neatly ironed trousers swayed with his long strides. Women of all ages paused to glance at him, some with longing, some with disgust. He was tall, with a sharp jawline and a smile that could melt butter. But it wasn't his looks that made him notorious, it was his insatiable hunger for conquest. Kunle wasn't just a lover, he was a hunter, a collector of broken hearts. Kunle. A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Wasiu, his closest friend and partner in mischief, waving excitedly from a wooden bench outside Mama Charde's buka. Kunle smirked and adjusted his sunglasses. Wasiu, Wetende now, he said, snapping his fingers before sitting beside him. Two other friends, Jide and Tunde, were there as well, laughing and chewing noisily on roasted corn. You know day tire, Kunle? Jide teased, his mouth half full. This one way you don day chase another woman again. Kunle leaned back, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Life is too short to settle down, my brothers. As long as they have legs, they will fall. It's simple mathematics. Tunde snorted, nearly choking on his corn. Mathematics ko? You day craze. A beg, who be the new victim? Kunle pointed slyly with his chin towards the market. There, amidst the chaos, stood Ireti, slender, dark-skinned, and with a presence that demanded attention. Her stern face felt like a mask, her sharp eyes scanning her surroundings like a hawk. She seemed untouchable, like someone who could cut through steel with her gaze. Wasiu's playful expression quickly turned to anxiety. Kunle, haba. You no get sense? That one day different oh. People no day near her for a reason. Kunle raised an eyebrow. And which reason be that? Her papa na witch doctor. No be ordinary one oh, Wasiu whispered urgently, looking around to be sure she hadn't heard. Dem say the man curse and before him die. Say she no go ever sabi wetin be love. Kunle, no put yourself for wahala oh. Kunle chuckled, leaning forward. Which one is which doctor again? You people believe too much nonsense. She's a woman, and like all women, she will fall. The three friends exchanged worried glances but knew better than to argue. Kunle was reckless and stubborn, the kind of man who ran toward danger with open arms just to prove he could survive it. Kunle wasted no time. That evening, as the market quieted and people returned to their homes, he approached Ireti. She was standing outside her small kiosk, counting the day's earnings. Without asking for permission, Kunle leaned casually against a wooden pillar, his voice smooth like honey. Good evening, fine woman, he began, flashing his signature smile. Ireti's face showed no amusement. She barely looked up, her fingers still flipping through Naira notes. What do you want? Kunle feigned surprise. Ah, is it a crime to greet someone as beautiful as you? Ireti looked up then, her sharp gaze piercing through him like a knife. If that's all, you can leave. Kunle was taken aback but didn't waver. He loved a challenge. You day vex easily. My name is Kunle, and I just wanted to get to know you better. Don't waste your time, she said, turning back to her money. Most men would have walked away then, embarrassed, but not Kunle. For the next week, he kept showing up. Sometimes with freshly plucked flowers, sometimes with sweet words that could melt even the most stubborn heart. Slowly, like the steady drip of water on stone, her resistance began to crack. Against her better judgment, Ireti let him in. Her cold exterior started to melt in Kunle's presence. She had spent her whole life alone, the grim shadow of her father's name chasing away anyone brave enough to approach. But Kunle was relentless, and his charm was intoxicating. For the first time in her life, Ireti smiled. And when she smiled, it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. Kunle seized the opportunity, pouring sweet nothings into her ear, playing the part of the devoted lover. She fell hard, and when she loved completely. She cooked for him, even learning his favorite dishes. Every time Kunle picked offense like they were fairly used clothes they call Okirika, Ireti will quickly apologize. She swore that nothing and no one will come between her and her Kunle. One day, she caught him on her bed with another girl, and to the surprise of everyone, including Kunle and his cheating friend, Ireti apologized for walking into her room, without permission. She bought him expensive clothes and perfumes from her meager savings. On his birthday, she surprised him with a wristwatch that must have cost her several months' earnings. For Ireti, Kunle was a dream, the proof she needed that her father's curse was a lie. But for Kunle, Ireti was just another game. It began with subtle changes. Kunle would cancel their plans at the last minute or forget to return her calls. He started making excuses, claiming he was busy at work, even though everyone in town knew Kunle didn't have a steady job. Ireti noticed but chose to ignore. She told herself it was normal, that no man was perfect. One evening, as Ireti passed by a local drinking spot on her way home, she heard laughter, Kunle's laughter. Curiosity tugged at her feet, forcing her to pause outside and listen. There he was, drinking with his friends, his voice loud and proud. Ireti? Ah, she was too easy, Kunle exclaimed, taking a swig from his bottle. I didn't even sweat. Another trophy for the collection. The room erupted in laughter, but Ireti felt like the ground beneath her had crumbled. Her heart shattered, the fragile pieces barely holding on. She waited in the shadows, listening to every word. He talked about her as if she were nothing but a conquest, a meaningless prize to be flaunted. When Kunle and his friends finally stumbled out, drunk and noisy, Ireti was gone. But something inside her had snapped. Ireti didn't cry that night. Instead, she sat on her bed, her fists clenched so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Her face was expressionless, but her mind was a storm. A dark thought began to grow, spreading slowly like smoke in a sealed room. Her father's prophecy echoed in her mind, "You'll never know love, Ireti. And if you try to find it, it will destroy you." "No," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. "I will not let him win. Kunle will pay." The next day, she carried on as though nothing had happened. She smiled at Kunle when he visited, served him his favorite meal, and even gifted him a new pair of shoes. But deep down, she was plotting. Her father may have been a witch doctor, but Ireti had never been interested in his craft. Now, she found herself longing for the power he once wielded. In the dead of night, she opened the old wooden chest her father had left behind. Inside were charms, potions, and tattered pieces of paper filled with mysterious markings. Ireti had always thought these tools were meaningless, but now, they seemed alive, whispering to her, calling to her. "Even Jesus cannot help you, Kunle," she heaved a sigh. Her transformation had begun. It was noon in St. Obi Street, and the bustling village came alive with its usual sounds, motor horns, the cries of hawkers selling fried plantains and pure water, and the constant chatter of restless crowds. Kunle, sharp-dressed in freshly ironed clothes, sauntered into a small restaurant at Thunder Roundabout, wearing the smug smile of a man who had just conquered his latest target. He spotted Ireti sitting at a corner table, her face glowing with hope and innocent joy. She had fallen for him, hook, line, and sinker, just as he had planned. Kunle chuckled softly to himself. He was indeed the king of the game, a smooth talker with a devilish charm, the kind of man no woman could resist. Or so he thought. Reby was nothing like the city girls Kunle usually pursued. She was simple, respectful, and quiet, a good girl, as people would say. To Kunle, that was precisely her problem. He found her dull, but the challenge of breaking her innocence had thrilled him. And now, it was time to end things. Kunle strolled up to her table, his cologne clouding the air. Reby's face lit up as she saw him, her smile like the shining sun after heavy rain. "I've missed you, Kunle," she said softly, her eyes sparkling. Kunle pulled out a chair and sat down, his posture dripping with arrogance. "Reby, I came to see you because we need to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. His tone was cold, unfamiliar. Something was wrong. "What's the matter?" she asked, leaning forward, searching his eyes for answers. Kunle leaned back casually, crossing his arms. "See, Reby, I beg no vex, but I think we should end this thing between us." Reby froze. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Where's this coming from?" "But I thought you said you love me, Kunle. I really love you too." Kunle smirked. He was enjoying her reaction. "Reby, I beg, love kill you there." "Love? Who told you I was serious about you?" "I just wanted to have fun." "Don't do a beg. Let's press stop and eject." Our CD2 done crack. The world around Reby seemed to shatter into pieces. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her chest felt tight, as though she couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, the shock dissolved into something darker, anger, rage, betrayal. "Kunle," she said through gritted teeth, her voice low and cold, "tell me it wasn't all a lie. Tell me you love me." But Kunle, shameless and arrogant, burst into laughter. "Reby, babe, I beg, carry your wahala go." "Love? I don't have your time. Do you know how many girls are waiting for me? I beg, get over yourself." Reby's hands, resting on the table, clenched into fists. Her stomach churned with a mixture of pain and fury, but something deeper stirred inside her, a force she could not explain. She stared at Kunle, her eyes dark and unblinking. "Kunle," she said, her voice now a chilling whisper, "you chased after me, not for love, but for lust. You broke my trust. You treated me like nothing. And so, Kunle, hear me well, the same way you pursued me is the same way women of all kinds will chase after you, not out of love, but out of lust. From this day on, your life will never be the same." Kunle scoffed. "See this witch? I beg, go and rest. I don't have time for your Nollywood drama." But as Kunle stood to leave, a sudden gust of wind rushed through the small restaurant, rattling chairs and making the curtains flutter violently. The air grew heavy, almost suffocating, like the moment before a thunderstorm. For a brief second, Reby's eyes seemed to glow, but Kunle dismissed it as a trick of the light. He walked out of the restaurant, laughing to himself. Curse? Witch? Nonsense. He had no idea how wrong he was. That night, Kunle lay on his expensive king-sized bed, scrolling through his phone. It was a typical evening for him, checking Instagram DMs and replying to the flirty messages his many admirers sent him. He had no shortage of attention, women adored him, and he enjoyed every moment of it. But as the clock struck midnight, the first call came. It was Fumi, a girl he had stopped talking to months ago. He frowned. Why was she calling him now? Out of curiosity, he picked up. Kunle, Fumi sobbed on the other end, her voice shaky and desperate. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't stop thinking about you. Please, I need to see you. Kunle laughed. Ah, Fumi, it's been months. Why are you disturbing me at this hour? But before he could finish, his phone buzzed again, another incoming call. This time, it was from Charie, a girl who had blocked him after he cheated on her. Then another call came in. And another. And another. By 1 a.m., his phone was flooded with calls and messages, all from women he had dated, ghosted, or manipulated in the past. Some begged him to take them back, others declared undying love for him, and a few even threatened to come to his house. Kunle was amused at first, but as the calls became more frantic, he began to feel uneasy. "What kind of madness is this?" he muttered, switching off his phone. But the night's terror was only beginning. The next morning, Kunle woke up to the sound of his mother calling him from the living room. "Kunle, come out here," she shouted. Kunle groaned and rolled out of bed. "What is it this early in the morning?" he grumbled. As he stepped into the living room, he froze. Standing next to his mother was his younger sister, Tola. But something was off. The way they looked at him, hungrily, almost predatorily, sent shivers down his spine. "Kunle," his mother said, her voice softer now, almost flirtatious, "you're looking very handsome today." Kunle blinked. "Mama, are you okay?" Tola giggled, twirling a strand of her hair. "Brother Kunle, you've never looked so fine before. Don't you think I'm beautiful too?" She struck a pose. Kunle stumbled backward, his heart racing. What's wrong with you people? Stop saying nonsense." His mother reached out to touch his cheek, but he slapped her hand away and bolted out of the house. Kunle ran to his office, hoping to escape the madness at home. But when he arrived, the nightmare only deepened. His female colleagues crowded around him, batting their eyelashes and complimenting him in ways that made his skin crawl. Even his boss, a woman old enough to be his grandmother, smiled seductively at him. "Kunle," she purred, leaning close to him in her tight-fitting suit, her breast scrubbing the tip of his nose. "I've always admired your skills. Maybe we can discuss a promotion over dinner?" Kunle's eyes widened in terror. "Madam, control yourself." But there was no escape. Wherever he went, women followed him on the streets, at the bus stop, even at church. And then, to his ultimate horror, men started joining in. It was at the mall that he encountered Guy, the infamous Lagos crossdresser who was known for his flamboyant outfits and bold personality. Guy spotted Kunle from across the room and sashayed toward him, blowing kisses. "Kunle baby," Guy purred, "give me a taste." Kunle screamed and bolted, his heart pounding like a drum. He ran out of the mall, his legs carrying him straight back to his house. Whatever was happening wasn't natural. It was a curse, he was sure of it. But how could he stop it? Kunle locked himself in his bedroom, pacing back and forth as he tried to make sense of the chaos that had become his life. Then, suddenly, Irate's voice echoed in his mind, "Your life will never be the same." He froze. This was her doing. It had to be. But how? Desperate, Kunle decided to visit Baba Tunde, a well-known herbalist in his village. Kunle wasn't the type to believe in juju or curses, but after the past 2 days, he was ready to believe anything. Baba Tunde listened quietly as Kunle narrated his ordeal. When Kunle finished, the old man nodded slowly. "You wronged someone powerful, someone with the spirit of vengeance. This curse will not leave you until you right your wrongs." Kunle swallowed hard. "What must I do?" "The woman you hurt, go to her. Beg for her forgiveness. If her heart softens and she releases you, only then will the curse be lifted." Kunle returned to Saint Obi, his mind racing. He didn't want to face Irate, but he had no choice. He found her at the same restaurant where it had all begun. She was sitting in the same corner, sipping a cup of ginger and lemon tea, her face calm and unreadable. "Irate," Kunle said, falling to his knees before her, "please, I'm sorry. Forgive me." She looked at him, her expression cold. "Is that what you came to say?" Kunle's voice cracked. "Please, I can't live like this anymore." Irate leaned forward, her eyes boring into his soul. "You broke my heart, Kunle. You treated me like dirt, and now you're paying the price. Tell me, do you deserve forgiveness?" Kunle's lips trembled. He didn't know what to say. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Wherever he went, women followed him on the streets, at the bus stop, even at church. And then, to his ultimate horror, men started joining in. It was at the mall that he encountered Guy, the infamous Lagos crossdresser who was known for his flamboyant outfits and bold personality. Guy spotted Kunle from across the room and sashayed toward him, blowing kisses. "Kunle baby," Guy purred, "give me a taste." Kunle screamed and bolted, his heart pounding like a drum. He ran out of the mall, his legs carrying him straight back to his house. Whatever was happening wasn't natural. It was a curse, he was sure of it. But how could he stop it? Kunle locked himself in his bedroom, pacing back and forth as he tried to make sense of the chaos that had become his life. Then, suddenly, Irate's voice echoed in his mind, "Your life will never be the same." He froze. This was her doing. It had to be. But how? Desperate, Kunle decided to visit Baba Tunde, a well-known herbalist in his village. Kunle wasn't the type to believe in juju or curses, but after the past 2 days, he was ready to believe anything. Baba Tunde listened quietly as Kunle narrated his ordeal. When Kunle finished, the old man nodded slowly. You wronged someone powerful, someone with the spirit of vengeance. This curse will not leave you until you right your wrongs. Kunle swallowed hard. What must I do? The woman you hurt, go to her. Beg for her forgiveness. If her heart softens and she releases you, only then will the curse be lifted. Kunle returned to Saint Obi, his mind racing. He didn't want to face Irate, but he had no choice. He found her at the same restaurant where it had all begun. She was sitting in the same corner, sipping a cup of ginger and lemon tea, her face calm and unreadable. Irate, Kunle said, falling to his knees before her, "Please, I'm sorry. Forgive me." She looked at him, her expression cold. Is that what you came to say? Kunle's voice cracked. Please, I can't live like this anymore. Irate leaned forward, her eyes boring into his soul. You broke my heart, Kunle. You treated me like dirt, and now you're paying the price. Tell me, do you deserve forgiveness? Kunle's lips trembled. He didn't know what to say. For a long moment, silence hung between them. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Irate sighed. Kunle, the hostilities have just begun. Now if you don't mind, I am not a bee, but I have more spells to cast. Kunle mopped at her wide-eyed, tears hanging barely around his eyelids as Irate sauntered off. Kunle Ajayi sat in his single-room apartment, small, modest, and usually a haven. But today, it felt like a cage. The wooden door was bolted shut, the windows tightly closed. Not even a sliver of air dared to creep in. Kunle sat on his bed, drenched in sweat, clutching his Bible like it was the last weapon in a world overrun by invisible enemies. He whispered to himself, Kunle, keep it together. You're fine. Just stay inside. He adjusted the heavy table he'd dragged in front of the door as an extra barricade. His eyes darted to the room's single window, where he'd hammered nails into the wooden frame for good measure. Nothing was getting in, not even a cockroach. Kunle sighed heavily and muttered, It's the devil. The devil wants to finish me, but not today, not Kunle Ajayi. Just as he was trying to calm his racing heart, a loud knock shattered the silence. Knock, knock, Kunle. It was Mama Grace, their landlady, crooning his name as if she were calling out to her lost sheep. Mama Grace was 70 years old, with legs bowed from years of carrying too much weight, but her voice was sharp enough to pierce through concrete walls. This woman saw him come out from between his mother's legs when she was done giving birth to children. Kunle froze. He wouldn't dare answer. He had been trying to avoid women, all women. But Mama Grace was persistent. Kunle, are you deaf? I said open this door. Kunle tiptoed to the corner of his room, his heart hammering in his chest. Why is she here again? He whispered, gripping the Bible tighter. The last time Mama Grace had cornered him in the compound, she talked about how a young, handsome man needs a good woman to cook for him. The way she fluttered her sparse eyelashes still gave him nightmares. Another knock, louder this time. Kunle. Don't make me break this door. Oh. I cooked some delicious egusi soup for you. Just as a token of my love. She chuckled loudly, and Kunle's skin crawled. Token of her what? Kunle's thoughts raced. He knew he couldn't stay silent forever. If he ignored Mama Grace, she would likely summon the entire neighborhood, claiming he was either sick or dead inside. Kunle cleared his throat and responded, Mama Grace. Thank you, but I'm fasting. God bless you. Mama Grace was undeterred. Fasting, Kunle, fasting will not kill you. Open this door now. You need strength to pray, and my soup has plenty of meat. My knees can barely climb the stairs, and you want me to go back with this pot? God forbid. Kunle groaned silently. She wasn't going anywhere. He tiptoed to the door, careful not to make too much noise, and whispered, Mama Grace, I'm very grateful. Just leave it at the door, I will come and take it later. There was silence for a moment, and Kunle dared to hope his solution had worked. But then she said, Kunle, you think I don't know you didn't brush your teeth this morning? Come out here now, so I can see your fine face. Kunle nearly screamed. He wasn't safe in his own home anymore. God, what did I do to deserve this? As soon as Mama Grace hobbled away in defeat, Kunle's phone buzzed. He rushed to pick it up, if only to distract himself from the madness outside. It was a name he hadn't seen on his screen in years. Adunni? Adunni had been his childhood best friend, a kind-hearted girl from their neighborhood, now a nun who had devoted her life to God. Of all people, she was the last person he expected to call him. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed the green button. Hello? Kunle, her voice was calm but shaky, like she was unsure of what to say. Adunni, are you okay? She sighed, her voice dropping to a whisper. Kunle, I don't know why, but I don't think I gave enough thoughts to coming to the convent. Kunle, I need you. I need you so badly. Kunle's brows furrowed. What do you mean? Need me for what? I can't explain it, she said urgently. Something strange is happening. I have been praying for clarity, but God led me to call you. Please, come to Our Lady of Mercy convent. I feel like I'm not safe. Kunle's heartbeat quickened. A sense of dread washed over him. Not safe from what? What's going on? I can't say over the phone. Just come. Please. Before Kunle could respond, the line went dead. Kunle stared at the phone in disbelief. Adunni, a nun, was in trouble? And somehow, God had told her to call him? The same God who had placed him in the epicenter of this bizarre curse, where every woman seemed to want to drag him into the deepest pits of temptation. This can't be ordinary, Kunle muttered to himself. It's spiritual warfare. But despite his confusion and growing fear, he couldn't ignore Adunni's plea. If anyone deserved his help, it was her. Kunle threw on a clean shirt, grabbed his bicycle key, and prepared to head for the convent. But just as he opened his door, he saw the one person he least wanted to confront, his own mother. She was standing right outside, her hands pressed together in an exaggerated display of joy. Kunle, my handsome boy, she exclaimed. Kunle froze. Mummy, what are you doing here? His mother beamed like a young girl at her first school dance. If he didn't know better, he'd think she was blushing? Kunle took a step back instinctively. Mummy, is everything all right? Of course, my son, she said in a soft, dreamy voice. I just came to see you. I missed your face. Kunle's palms went slick with sweat. His mother looked at him as if he were a piece of suya roasting on a street-side grill. He stumbled backward, his voice rising in alarm. "Mummy, Mummy. It's me, Kunle, your son. What's wrong with you?" She reached out to touch his face, her head tilted to the side as though mesmerized. "I know, Kunle. My handsome, handsome boy." Kunle screamed internally. This was not his mother. It couldn't be. He grabbed her hands before they could reach his cheek. "God forbid. Mummy, stop this now. This is not normal behavior." But she just giggled, a sound Kunle never ever wanted to hear from his own mother. Kunle dropped her hands and bolted, running down the stairs 2 at a time. "I'll be back when this madness ends," he yelled over his shoulder. Kunle decided there was only one safe place left apart from the convent, the house of God. He drove straight to his church, praying feverishly under his breath the entire way. He has tried juju, it didn't work. Let him try the Christian God and check something. His pastor has always boasted that with God, nothing shall be impossible. "Father, Lord, deliver me from whatever spiritual attack this is. Is it village people? Is it an ancestral curse? God, have mercy." When he arrived, he dashed into the building, hoping to find his pastor for guidance. But instead, he walked straight into the middle of a scene. Sister Joy, his pastor, was shouting at the top of his lungs. "Holy Ghost fire! What are you doing?" The congregation sat frozen in their seats, eyes darting between the pastor and his wife, Sister Joy. The matronly woman, known for her long skirts and constant scowl, was now winking boldly at Kunle. Kunle stopped in his tracks. "Not again," he muttered. Sister Joy swayed slightly where she stood, giggling like a schoolgirl. "Pastor, relax now. Don't you see this fine boy? Even the Bible says we should admire the works of God's hands." Kunle wanted the ground to open and swallow him. If even his pastor's wife wasn't spared, then surely he was doomed. The pastor turned on Kunle, pointing dramatically. "Kunle, what did you do to my wife?" "Pastor, I swear I didn't do anything." Kunle threw his hands up in surrender. "I don't know what's happening. Women everywhere are just acting strange around me." Pastor looked him over suspiciously, then rubbed his chin. This is not ordinary. We need to pray." "I've been praying," Kunle cried. "But it's getting worse." Pastor raised a hand for silence. "Don't worry, my son. God will fight for you." He turned to Sister Joy, who was still eyeing Kunle like he was Sunday lunch. "But first, my wife needs deliverance." Kunle couldn't take it anymore. He'd had enough embarrassment and confusion for one day. Without another word, he dashed out of the church, jumped on his bicycle, and sped off toward the convent. As he drove, Kunle realized one thing for certain: whatever this was, it wasn't natural. Some force, something dark, powerful, and beyond human understanding, was after him. And if he didn't find a way to stop it soon, it just might destroy him. For now, his only hope was Adunni. If she truly needed him, perhaps their destinies were intertwined. But one thing was clear: this was just the beginning of Kunle's nightmare, and Irati refused to let him wake from it. Kunle stumbled through the overgrown bush path leading to the small house deep in the outskirts of the village. His breathing was heavy, his heart pounding like a talking drum at a festival. The moon shone bright in the sky, casting eerie shadows on the twisting trees, but Kunle barely noticed. He had been riding and walking all day, desperate, broken, and worn out. His legs felt like they could give way, but he didn't stop until he stood in front of the small, dimly lit house. This was not an easy decision for Kunle. In fact, it was the last thing he wanted to do. But he had no choice. He had exhausted all other options: pastors, herbalists, even a visit to the prophet in the big city. None of them could undo the curse. Every door he knocked on slammed shut in his face. And now, as his last hope, he came here, to Eni Orla. Everyone in the village knew Any Orla. Not because she could see, but because she couldn't. Her blindness wasn't from birth, though. No, it was the kind of blindness that held a story, one soaked in blood, betrayal, and pain. She was the younger sister of Ireti, the same Ireti who had cursed Kunle when his foolishness broke her heart. He had toyed with the wrong person's feelings, and now he was paying the price. When Any Orla opened the door to her home, she didn't look at Kunle, she couldn't. But her face, calm and patient, turned slightly in his direction, as though she could sense him. Kunle, her soft voice acknowledged him. There was no surprise in it. Somehow, she knew he was coming. Any Orla, Kunle's voice cracked like dry firewood in the harmattan season, heavy with exhaustion and shame. I need your help. Come in, she said, quietly stepping aside to let him pass. Once inside, Any Orla sat on a woven mat in the middle of her room. Her white, cloudy eyes stared blankly into the space where Kunle sat on a simple wooden stool. Any Orla began to chant, her voice low and melodic, as if calling to spirits beyond the veil. The air in the hut grew heavy, charged with an energy that made Kunle's skin crawl. The walls seemed to pulse with life, shadows dancing in ways that defied logic. Close your eyes, Any Orla instructed. Kunle and Ireti obeyed. And then the pain began. Her white, cloudy eyes stared blankly into the space where Kunle sat on a simple wooden stool. The room smelled faintly of herbs and clay, with a burning lantern casting flickering shadows on the mud walls. There was no sound except for the faint chirping of crickets outside. Tell me, Any Orla began. Why did you come? Kunle swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. Ireti, she cursed me. Any Orla tilted her head slightly. That curse did not come out of nowhere. You earned it, Kunle. I know, Kunle broke down, gripping his face with trembling hands. I was selfish. I hurt her. I played with her heart. But, this curse, this suffering. I can't live like this anymore. Helpless. Humiliated. Unwanted, Any Orla said softly, her voice firm but not unkind. Each word hit Kunle like a slap. That is how you made her feel. Ireti gave her heart to you, but you treated it like it was nothing. Did you think she wouldn't fight back? Were you not the one boasting to your friends about your body count? Why did you stop counting? Or has your phallus stopped being a calculator? Kunle was silent. He couldn't bring himself to defend his actions. He knew the truth. He had taken Ireti's love for granted, thinking she, like so many others, would move on and forgive him. But Ireti was different. Her pain birthed vengeance, and her vengeance birthed a curse strong enough to cripple any man. Please, Kunle begged after a long pause. I know I was wrong. I'll do anything to make things right. Anything. Any Orla sighed. Her gentle demeanor made her feel almost otherworldly, as though she existed in a realm that Kunle could not reach. Slowly, she lifted her hands to the plain scarf wrapped around her head. Do you know why I am blind? She asked, her voice filled with a weight that made Kunle's chest tighten. He shook his head instinctively, then realized she could not see him. And no. And so, Any Orla began her story, a story that made Kunle's blood run cold. Years ago, Any Orla and Ireti were just young girls growing up in the same village. Their father was a powerful witch doctor, known for his dark magic and ruthless nature. He feared nothing except death. When he fell ill at the age of 50, he sought a way to prolong his life. His solution was horrifying. The witch doctor gathered his 2 daughters in front of him one night. The air was heavy with incense and the taste of bitter herbs on their tongues as he spoke. One of you, he hissed, must give me your eyes. The girls froze in confusion and terror, staring at their father as though he had gone mad. What do you mean, Baba? Ireti asked, her voice trembling. I mean exactly what I said, the witch doctor snapped. You are young. Your lives and beauty mean little compared to my life and power. One of you must sacrifice your eyes so that I may live another 20 years. One eye for 10 years, he explained. You are my blood, he continued, his voice cold and commanding. And only blood can save me. Ireti, beautiful, proud, and fiery, had stared at him in disbelief. She had dreams of a life far beyond the village, of love, of adventure. How could she give up her sight? No, she said firmly, her voice sharp as a blade. You have lived your life. Papa, you cannot ask me to destroy mine. Her father's anger was a storm, his curses thunderous. You will regret this, Ireti. If you won't give your eyes for me, then you will never know love. No man will ever want you. You will stay alone and forgotten until you die. Ireti ran from him, tears streaming down her face, but she did not turn back. Her dreams were too strong to be sacrificed for his selfishness. But Eni Orla, kind, quiet, and selfless Eni Orla, had done what Ireti would not. She didn't flinch, didn't ask for anything in return. She gave up both her eyes to save their father. And for 20 more years, their father lived. Eni Orla, now blind, never once blamed her sister, not even when Ireti left the village to chase a life of her own. Now, in the present, Kunle reached that very same hut. It looked worn with age, the roof sagging under its own weight. Inside sat Eni Orla, her unseeing eyes staring past him, but her presence felt sharp as though she could pierce into his soul. Kunle fell to his knees before her. Eni Orla, he began, his voice breaking. I need your help. Eni Orla tilted her head slightly, a soft smile on her lips. You are the one who broke my sister's heart. The one who laughed at her scars. Kunle flinched at her words, shame twisting in his stomach. She loved you, Eni Orla continued, her voice gentle yet firm. Even when you made her feel like she didn't deserve love. And now, look at you. You feel what she felt, helpless, humiliated, unwanted. Kunle lowered his head, tears streaming down his face. I was a fool, Eni Orla. I know that now. Please, help me. I'll do anything. Anything? Eni Orla's smile faded as her face turned serious. Then give me one of your eyes. Kunle looked up sharply, his heart pounding. His eye? Fear gripped him. Could he really do it? Ireti had been silent the entire time, standing in the corner of the hut like a shadow. But now, she stepped forward, her face calm but her voice steady. If he wants to be free of the curse, she said, her voice cutting through the room, then let it be fair. He gives one eye, and I give one too. Kunle stared at her, stunned. He had never truly looked at her before. Not like this. Her face, once beautiful but scarred by a fire she barely escaped as a child, held a grace he hadn't noticed before. And now, here she was, willing to share his pain. Ireti, he whispered, his voice trembling. You would do this? I loved you, Kunle, she said simply, her eyes meeting his. I still do. Her words twisted his heart in a way he didn't expect. For the first time, Kunle felt something foreign, guilt. Real guilt, heavy and sharp like a knife in his chest. Eni Orla sighed, her hands running over the carved wooden staff she always carried. Love is a strange thing, she said. It makes fools of us all. But if you are willing, we will proceed. Kunle hesitated. The thought of losing an eye terrified him. But the thought of living under this curse for the rest of his life was worse. He nodded, his jaw tight with resolve. I'll do it. Ireti stepped closer to Kunle and took his hand. Her touch was warm, steadying. Together, she said softly. What followed was not of this world. Eni Orla began to chant, her voice low and melodic, as if calling to spirits beyond the veil. The air in the hut grew heavy, charged with an energy that made Kunle's skin crawl. The walls seemed to pulse with life, shadows dancing in ways that defied logic. Close your eyes, Any Orla instructed. Kunle and Ireti obeyed. And then the pain began. It was not a physical pain but something far deeper, like their very souls were being wrenched apart. Kunle felt something leave him, something vital and irreplaceable. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Through the searing agony, he felt Ireti's grip on his hand tighten. She was there, sharing his pain, and somehow that thought gave him strength. When it was over, they collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Kunle's hand instinctively went to his face. To his horror, he felt the empty socket where his left eye had been. But the curse, it was gone. He could feel it. Ireti touched her own face, now missing her right eye. Despite the pain, there was a peace in her expression. Any Orla smiled faintly, her unseeing eyes seeming to gaze at something only she could perceive. The curse is broken, she said. But remember, Kunle, redemption is not a single act. It is a path you must choose to walk every day. If you break my heart again, this time even men will go after you and your one eye. Kunle looked at Ireti, his chest tight with emotion. Ireti, he struggled to find the words. I don't deserve you. And I am so sorry. A heavy silence filled the room. Any Orla watched quietly from a corner, her work done. Kunle's apology hung in the air like a fragile piece of glass, waiting to fall. Then, unexpectedly, Ireti laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was bitter and empty, like someone who had been hurt far too many times. But there was something else there, acceptance. Kunle, she said, shaking her head, you are blind in one eye, and I am blind in one eye. That means we are now perfect for each other. Kunle blinked, surprised, and then, without meaning to, he chuckled. It started small, but soon his chest shook with real laughter. He couldn't believe it. After everything, after all their sins, their hurt, their madness, they were alive. They were free. He looked at Ireti, really looked at her. For the first time, he didn't see her as a conquest or a game to win. He saw her as a woman, a person who had suffered just as much as he had. And in that moment, something deep inside him shifted. Perfect for each other, he murmured, repeating her words, a crooked smile on his face. For the first time in his life, Kunle thought, maybe, just maybe, he could be more than the selfish man he used to be. Years later, the sun shone brightly over a small but lively village. Children ran through the dusty streets, their laughter filling the air. Women sold vegetables by the roadside, their loud haggling voices blending into the background. Life moved on, as it always did. In the middle of the village square stood Kunle and Ireti. They were older now, wiser. Ireti held a small basket of fruits, her remaining eye sparkling in the sunlight. Kunle stood beside her, holding her hand. The years had been kind to them. Their story had become part of the village's folklore. People whispered about the man who had once been cursed by his own greed and the woman who had been strong enough to break the cycle. But to Kunle and Ireti, those were just old tales. They were simply two people who had found their way back to each other. As they stood there, smiling at each other, Any Orla approached them. The young woman was the most important factor in breaking the curse and rightfully is the only one with two eyes. Both of eyes, once taken by sacrifice for love, fully restored by another sacrifice for love too. Kunle, Ireti. You two look happy, she said. Kunle grinned. Happier than I deserve. Any Orla laughed. Maybe. But I think you've done enough to earn it. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd. It was Guy, the infamous crossdresser who had once chased Kunle during his cursed days. She still carried herself with unmatched confidence and wit. Seeing Kunle, she smirked. Kunle, she called, sauntering over. So you're finally off the market? Shame. I was next in line. Kunle threw his head back and laughed. Guy, you never change. Why would I? She quipped, winking at Ireti. But tell me, how are those old eyes of yours holding up? Kunle shook his head, still laughing. Better than yours, I'm sure. Guy rolled her eyes and walked away with a playful wave, leaving the couple laughing. Kunle and Iriti walked back to their home, hand in hand. The light bathed them in gold, and for a moment, the world felt perfect. Kunle glanced at Iriti, his heart full. Iriti, he whispered, his voice soft. I came to you for a game, but I found something real. She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Let's just hope our kids don't inherit your foolishness. Kunle chuckled. Let's also hope our son doesn't meet sisters who'll take both of his eyes. Iriti burst into laughter, shaking her head. That would actually make sense. At least then, he'd only be seeing his partner. They laughed together, their voices carrying into the evening sky. And for once in their complicated, tangled lives, everything was as it should be.
Thank you for watching to the very end. Congratulations, you've unlocked your chance to win our prize. To enter, simply leave a comment below. 1. Start with the name of your favorite character from this story. 2. Tell us where you're watching from. 3. And share at least one lesson you've learned from this story. The comment with the most likes and replies by 4 p.m. GMT tomorrow will be our winner. Get commenting and good luck. I'll see you again on our next story. Until then, stay bookie bookie.